Shrine Keeper, I think it's time for one last story.
Did we already come to an end?
So it seems, friend. So tell me, Shrine Keeper, who was Lord Gwyn, really?
Rest at the bonfire, then, and let me tell you the story of a god who lost it all to preserve his illusion. Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, is often remembered as a distant figure, a towering god whose age came and went long before the Chosen Undead stepped foot into Lordran. But Gwyn's story is not the tale of a simple king, nor of a benevolent god defending his people. His story is the origin of an entire era, and the root of every tragedy that follows. To understand Dark Souls, you must understand Gwyn. And to understand Gwyn, you must begin long before the Age of Fire even existed. In the beginning, the world was gray and silent, a still, unmoving wasteland where nothing lived, nothing died, and nothing changed. Gwyn was one of the pale, towering humanoids who existed beneath the arch trees, creatures without ambition or emotion, barely conscious in a world without time. Above them ruled the everlasting dragons, eternal beings with stone scales, unchanging, undefeatable, and unchallenged. And then the first flame appeared. From that moment, reality fractured. Disparity entered the world. Heat and cold, life and death, light and dark. And drawn to this new force, like moths to a blinding fire, Gwyn discovered the Lord's Soul, a vast well of power tied to light, storms, and the sky itself. With that power, he was transformed. His emotions deepened, his ambitions sharpened, and he began, for the first time in history, to want. He was not the only one. The Witch of Izalith claimed the soul of life. Nito found the soul of death, and the furtive pygmy took the dark soul, the seed that would one day become humanity. These four beings became something the world had never seen. Rulers, with power so great that even the dragons, once eternal, could be threatened. But Gwyn was not simply a warrior empowered by a soul. He was a leader, a strategist, and a visionary. Even before raising a weapon against the dragons, he created the first organized civilization. He gathered allies, forged the first armies, and shaped the earliest forms of religion. Miracles were born not as divine gifts, but as political tools. Expressions of Gwyn's lightning magic meant to inspire loyalty and fear. And with these miracles came war. Gwyn's lightning, fueled by the Lord's Soul, cracked through the heavens and peeled the stone scales from the dragon's hides. Izalith's sorceries scorched the arch trees. Nito spread plague and miasma through the ancient world. And Seath, the Scaleless, the traitor among dragons, offered knowledge that turned the tide of the war. Gwyn's armies advanced behind silver-clad knights. Artorias led charges against the dragon vanguard. Goff's great bow brought down titans from the skies, and Ornstein, Gwyn's loyal dragon slayer, struck with a spear that could pierce an immortal. By the war's end, the dragons were nearly extinct, and with their fall, the Age of Fire began. The world remade under a new order. At the center of this new era stood Anor Londo, Gwyn's shining capital. A symbol of perfection built by giant artisans, lit by unending sunlight, and governed by Gwyn's godly dynasty. His children were raised as symbols of their era. Gwynevere, the radiant princess, the nameless king, a war god whose legend would one day be erased. And Gwyndolin, the moon-touched child raised as a daughter to uphold illusions and faith. With the victory won, Gwyn ruled not just through force, but through ideology. He shaped belief itself. He taught the world to worship sunlight, to fear the dark, to associate fire with life and darkness with corruption. He created the Way of White, taught clerics the miracles of his lightning, and molded religion into a political machine that kept humanity obedient and terrified of their own potential. Gwyn's legacy was not only carved through war and miracles, but through the people he raised closest to him, his bloodline and his chosen champions. The golden age he built was upheld by these figures, each representing a fragment of the god he once was. And their fates are inseparable from Gwyn's own downfall. Though the world later remembers Gwyn as a distant, almost mythic king, he was also a father, and his children carried the burden of his ambitions long after he was gone. His firstborn son, the god of war, was once the pride of Anor Londo. Together with Ornstein, he led the dragon slayer armies that brought the everlasting dragons to their knees. But after the war ended, something changed. The firstborn grew fascinated by the dragons he once swore to kill. Whether it was admiration, doubt, or rebellion, history does not say, because Gwyn erased it. In one of the most extreme acts of divine censorship imaginable, Gwyn stripped his son of his name, his title, and his place among the gods. Statues were shattered, records were burned, his miracles were rewritten, and all memory of him was removed, leaving only faint traces in forgotten tomes and broken altars. Gwyn punished his son not for treason, but for breaking the illusion he worked so hard to build. A god who questioned the age of fire could not be allowed to exist. His second child, Gwynevere, was raised as the embodiment of sunlight itself. Her beauty, radiance, and warmth became the heart of Anor Londo's faith. But in truth, she never remained to play the role Gwyn carved for her. Long before the Chosen Undead arrived, Gwynevere fled the dying city, finding refuge in lands beyond Lordran. The Gwynevere seen in Anor Londo is nothing more than an illusion crafted by Gwyndolin, a memory of a goddess who abandoned the kingdom before its final collapse. Gwyn had built a kingdom of light, but even his own daughter could not bear to watch it fade. And then there is Gwyndolin, Gwyn's last legitimate child, but the only one who remained loyal. Born with a deep connection to the moon and the dark, Gwyndolin was raised as a daughter to better fit the role the gods needed her to play. He became the keeper of illusions, the protector of Anor Londo's facade, and the final defender of his father's fading empire. While his siblings fled or were erased, Gwyndolin stayed behind, maintaining illusions of sunlight to hide the truth, that Gwyn's age was already dead. Gwyndolin's life was a tragedy shaped entirely by loyalty, a devotion so absolute that it consumed him, just as the flame consumed his father. Gwyn's biological legacy was fractured, scattered, and broken long before his sacrifice. But his martial legacy, the 4 Knights of Gwyn, remained etched into history. Each knight represented a virtue Gwyn admired, twisted by the burdens he placed on them. There was Artorius, the Abyss Walker, whose honor and resolve were unmatched. Gwyn trusted him enough to send him alone into the unknown darkness, a task even gods feared. Yet even Artorius, the purest of Gwyn's champions, was swallowed by the abyss. His downfall is one of the clearest signs that Gwyn's war against the dark had consequences far beyond what he could foresee. There was Hawkeye Goff, the giant archer, capable of shooting down dragons from miles away. Once a proud general, Goff was blinded and effectively retired after the war, not by age or battle, but by political manipulation. Whether this was jealousy from humans or fear of giants' growing power, one thing is clear. Gwyn's order slowly cannibalized itself, even its greatest heroes. There was Kiran, the Lord's huntress, silent and deadly, a master assassin whose loyalty to Gwyn was absolute, until it was shattered by love. Her devotion to Artorias pushed her to beg for his soul, choosing a fallen knight over the king she once served. Even Gwyn's closest blades could not remain loyal forever. And at the head stood Ornstein, Gwyn's most faithful knight, the Dragon Slayer. He remained in Anor Londo long after every other god had fled, guarding a city of ghosts and illusions. His patience, once legendary, eventually broke. Tired of waiting for a chosen undead who never came, Ornstein abandoned his post to seek the nameless king, the heir Gwyn banished. Ornstein's departure marks the moment the kingdom truly died. Even the Golden Lion could not continue living in a city built on lies. But Gwyn's golden age was fragile, always a hair away from collapse. Humanity, born from the dark soul, carried a power that Gwyn feared. He saw in them an age that would dethrone him, extinguish the light, and bring forth a world no longer shaped by gods. So when humanity grew too strong, Gwyn acted. New Londo rose as a mighty human kingdom, and under it grew the Dark Wraiths, warriors who embraced the Dark Soul's true nature. Led by Darkstalker Koth, they became the first true competitors to Gwyn's dominance. In response, Gwyn ordered the unthinkable. He flooded the entire kingdom, drowning thousands of innocent humans, locking the Dark Wraiths beneath an ocean of death. It was one of the greatest atrocities in the history of the Age of Fire, done not out of heroism, but out of fear. That fear only grew. The Witch of Izalith, seeking to preserve the first flame without sacrifice, attempted to recreate it. Her experiment failed catastrophically, birthing the flame of chaos and transforming her lineage into the first demons. Gwyn sent knights to contain the catastrophe, but the bed of chaos could not be destroyed, and the loss of Izalith broke one of Gwyn's most important alliances. Worse, it destroyed the only hope the world had of saving the flame without Gwyn himself burning. And then came Ulasil, manipulated by dark whispers likely originating from Gwyn's own agents. The kingdom awakened Manus, the primeval human. His agony tore Ulasil into the abyss, and darkness spread like wildfire. Artorias gave everything to contain it. The kingdom was consumed anyway. 3 catastrophes. Izalith consumed by chaos, New Londo drowned in darkness, Ulasil swallowed by the abyss. Each one brought the world closer to the moment Gwyn feared most, the fading of the first flame. The Age of Fire was dying, and Gwyn, once a conqueror, once a king, became a desperate man clinging to a world that no longer wanted him. He exiled his firstborn son for siding with dragons. He reshaped his religion to hide the truth. He isolated himself from his remaining children. He created illusions to keep his kingdom from collapsing. His mind decayed beneath the pressure of a dying flame and a collapsing empire. Finally, unable to accept the natural end of his age, Gwyn marched to the kiln of the first flame, surrounded by black knights charred by demon fire and battle. There, he burned himself, sacrificing his own soul to keep the flame alive just a little longer. The result was not glory, it was torment. Gwyn became a husk of the god he once was, a hollowed lord striking endlessly at anything that approached the dying flame. His body remained, but his mind had been lost to the fire. The man who created the Age of Fire died trying to keep it from ending. And yet, his influence did not fade. His final act created a cycle, an endless loop of linking and relinking the flame, a burden passed down to undead champions, to desperate kings, to gods and mortals across the ages. Gwyn did not save the world. he imprisoned it. He locked it in a dying cycle that refused to let nature take its course. And in doing so, he shaped the fate of gods, humans, and hollows alike. This is the truth of Gwyn, the king who built a golden age, the tyrant who feared its end, the god who burned himself alive to preserve a world built on illusions, and the architect of every tragedy that followed. And so, that is the tale of Gwyn, the god who built a world of sunlight and burned himself away trying to save it. His choices shaped every kingdom we walked through, every monster we fought, every secret buried beneath Lordran's dying light. Whether you see him as hero or tyrant, savior or prisoner, his legacy is the reason this journey ever began. And now, as the flame flickers in the kiln, and the age of fire trembles between life and ash, only one truth remains. Every ending in this world begins with a choice. Thank you for sitting by the fire with me, for following the story of Lordran from its first spark to its final cinder. Rest at the bonfire, because soon, our journey continues in another age, another land, another story shaped by the hands of gods and men. And I'll be here to tell it.